What's going on, guys? Lambo here. In today's video, it's a introduction to map making. I'm not going to teach you, well, I am going to teach you how to make a map, but we're going to make an in-game map and walk you through all the parts and pieces that I am knowledgeable of. I don't know it all, but I'm going to share what I do know with you to get you started. That way, if you start making a map, you don't absolutely break everything. So stick around, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. This is a long one, so bear with me, and I'll see you guys in a second. If you guys want to learn how to make a boat, or how I made a boat in FS25, I do have a video that you can watch. I'll put up in the cards right now that we just shared the other day. Okay, I have my Giants Editor 10.0.3 open, and we are gonna dink around a little bit with the map stuff here. What I want to do first off is I don't have a map to work on. So we're gonna create a whole new mod. From there, you're gonna come up to File. We're gonna click on New Mod from Game. You're gonna get this little window pop up right here. Come right up here to Map Items. From Map Items, you can pick which one you want. I want to mess around with the water on the Asian map, so I'm gonna pick the Asian map. Next, it's gonna ask you a working directory. What I want you to do, that way we can work on this and still play it, is go to your mods folder, and we're gonna create a folder of whatever it is the map you want. The name that I've decided on is Liberated AS because I've already made it a Liberated River Springs. What I did in Liberated River Springs would make all the land buyable. That way I could build and do whatever I want all over the map. We're going to be doing that in this video as well. But first things first, let's get the map made. So create a folder that says FS25, whatever your map name is. After you've done that, open it up like this. Yours should be empty. Mine already has a map in there because I'm not going to do this again because it took a minute. After that, you're going to hit select folder while you're in this one. Don't have any folders selected here. But when you select that, it's going to set the working directory to that folder. When you press OK, it's going to start creating and compiling the map. So go ahead and press OK. Once you finally get loaded in, let's get a little bit oriented with some of the windows here. And I made mine nice and big for right now. Yours will probably be small or missing when you open it up. This is your scene graph. This is all the stuff that's included in the map, and there is a lot. If we go to expand all, right click on it, you can see there is a ton of stuff. You could get lost in there. I like to keep it somewhat closed, organized, only grab what I need when I need it, so I don't have a big, huge scenograph. Next up here, we have our attributes panel. So when I click on something, let's say I click on this sign right here, this attribute panel, some things to make note of when you're working with maps is whether or not a object is i3D referenced or if it's actually in the map. Now with maps, for the most part, you're going to be using a lot of i3D reference stuff, such as this max weight limit sign right here. You'll notice the little arrow, that means it is i3D referenced. And if we come up to the attributes panel, we will see the i3D referenced tab up here. Clicking on that, we would actually be able to track down where this file exactly is saved. We can see that it's saved at this i3D. We can change that out, do whatever we need to. But when the game loads up, this isn't actually in the map contributing towards the shapes file. This is just, it's called in, and it just saves on processing power a lot. From there, I'm going to expand this down just a little bit. Go clickety, click, click. And till we get down here to like round decal, just an example here. Once we click on that, we'll have some material info here. We can see that is a traffic sign decals mat 1. Coming down the line, you'll have it's a Beto map. This is usually the texture you see where like that makes up the red, the actual color of it, the black 7s and all that stuff. The gloss map is going to be these little, it looks like dirt on there right now. It contributes to that and shows shadows. And the normal map will show bumps. Bumps are easy to describe when you look at a screw, like a screw head. It will have the shape of a pair of Phillips, so you can unscrew it. That's a lot of what normal maps are used for, to create bumps and stuff, and additional detail without costing money. When I say money, I mean processor power. Then at the bottom down here, we're going to have our console. You always want to mod with this up. You always do. Always have this up. It's going to be showing you any issues that arise. You hear something here that I have no control over, the cut grass. If you're watching a tutorial and they're trying to show you how to do something and Giants Editor is up and they do not have their console open, you don't know if it's what they're doing is causing an error or not. So like, Super be careful of that. Okay, I want to bring you all the way up to the toolbar up here. We're going to look at this long toolbar here with all these little buttons. And I'm going to try to go down the line. I do not know everything with this, but we will go down the line and do our best. You're going to have some basic stuff. You make a new i3D, click that button there. You got your open i3D, got open i3D in a text editor. That's super useful if you need to make some text editor changes. Just make sure that in your file preferences, you are set up with a proper text editor path. Next up, we'll have reload i3D. Obviously, that'll reload everything that's in the i3D. Saving the i3D, save i3D as. So if we wanted to make a copy of this, we would click that one and go save as. Importing in i3D stuff. Now this does not, most cases, this does not do the i3D reference. If you want an i3D reference, I like to just get the file separated. So if I wanted this sign per se, I would go to this file location and drag and drop from a folder straight to the map like this. Next up, moving down the line, you got your undo, redo, your play. Don't press this, especially on a map. Don't press this. If you're going to be using play, most of the time I've found that you want to have the object, the animation or particle that you're testing, you want to have it in a separate i3D away from everything else, because if you hit the play in the vehicle section, your vehicle just fall. It turns all physics on. So anything and everything will break if it was meant to have physics when the game starts. There is certain aspects to use that, but I'm just telling you as a beginner, don't touch it. First person mode. This is cool. It drops you down into first person mode where you can do UAST keys, move around, look at stuff. This is good for like getting depth perception. Maybe you're building something, you don't know how big it needs to be. Okay, next up is the pixel magnifier mode. Okay, there we go. Pixel magnifier, that's what that does. Your home and world. This has to do with your translations and rotations. So a lot of times, right now it is on. If I go like this and I turn this, you notice how our little gizmo here is actually turned now? That's because on this axis, we are turned 53 degrees. But if I was, and you know, I can't move it straight across. If I go to move it, it goes up like that. But if I wanted to move it without having to deal with its own axis, I could go to world mode, and you can see that I could easily just move it away and then switch it back. This makes it a lot easier if you need to do some quick maneuvers with something, but your world and local mode is turned off. Then you have your set snapping. This basically, when you go to do this, it snaps to the next location. I don't per se do that very often unless I'm getting very meticulous with something. Turn it off. The translate mode, the rotation mode, and the scale mode, these just activate each one. If you look at the gizmo down here, as I click through the translate, the rotate, and the scaling, and if you uncheck them all, you can do all three at one time, which is how I usually mod. Next up, we are getting into the terrain editing stuff. Let's go to an area here that we can actually edit some terrain. On our way there, we'll notice how ridiculously slow we're traveling. If you want to increase your nav speed, and if you look all the way down to the bottom of the right down here, you'll see this little tag here. It says nav speed 1 plus minus. So you use the positive and negative to increase these. Hopefully you got a numpad. If you don't got a numpad, you might be a little screwed. So if we wanted to go faster, we could up that a little bit. So while we're pressing the W key and holding shift, we could really go fast with that. Now, if you're working in a vehicle and you find yourself flying all over the place, like you're trying to look at details really, really smooth, like if we were working on and I just really wanted that fine adjustments, we could just turn it down, your nav speed, and then I can get in a lot closer to see what it is I'm looking at. Okay, so the area that we're gonna work in is gonna be, of course I turn my nav speed down. We're just gonna play around in this little spot right here. The first one up here is gonna be your terrain sculpt, and when you click on these, there should be a little window down here that is already popped up, and if it is not, you just come right up here to window and you go to terrain editing and you just pick height or whatnot, and that window would pop back up again. Now it's going to put this big circle all around, and you won't be able to move your screen. Like whatever you're looking at is like what you're going to be working on. Now this big circle is controlled with your middle mouse button, or you can come right over here to size and say if we wanted that at 20, And then for some reason you can't hit enter anymore. So I just click on hardness really quick and it moves it to 20. And we'll notice that it has gotten smaller. The hardness is basically how steep it is. So if we barely hit it once, you can kind of see that it barely, lifted it up, and it seemed gradually focusing most of the power of lifting it towards the center of the circle and gradually feathering off towards the end. If we were to crank this all the way up to 1, we would notice that it's just an even rise across the thing there. And same thing if we jack this all the way down to just barely, we would notice it'd be a lot smaller, more of a hill. There is a couple different functions, such as you can do round or square. This basically just changes the painting brush that you'd be using. You can change what your left mouse button, your middle mouse button, and your right mouse button does, such as your left mouse button here does add. You can change it to smooth, subtract, replace. I don't know exactly how to use erosion and slope too much. I'm not a pro at maps at all. But the main ones I use are going to be the adding, the replace, and smooth, and obviously probably subtract. The replace is a neat function because if we were to make this kind of small, we're going to crank up our hardness a little bit, bring it up like this. If we wanted to copy that, right? So we're actually just going to go right up there. Now that is drastically higher than the rest of it. But let's say we only wanted it to be half that height. We could take the mouse cursor and kind of point it right about the middle of the hill, hold Control and R. And what it does when we did that, it changed this value right here under sculpting. So now it is at 22.8. And if we were to change that again, you can see that it's basically setting it to the current height of whatever that terrain is. And after we've set that, I have it set up towards my middle mouse button. I could just go like this and click and hold your middle mouse button. You can make it exactly the height you want and sit there and change it back and forth if you wanted to. I like the replace function. That's a good one. For the most part, that's all the information I have to share on the editing terrain and whatnot, the elevation at least. Next one we come into is going to be the terrain detail texture paint mode. This is what gives you the dirt and the mud and the grass and whatnot. When you click on this, it's the same rules as the terrain sculpt. You cannot move your screen. So if you need to paint over on this area, you have to unclick it and then click it again. And then say if you got painting, you got to do back over here again, you have to unclick it and then click it again. One thing it is really nice that you can use is the replace function actually works inside of the paint mode too, which is nice. Trust me, there is a lot of textures here, and we can look at those textures at the bottom down here where it says texture, and you'll say texture layer. Currently we're painting with asphalt, so if I was to click right here, it just made asphalt on the ground. Okay, the next one would be asphalt dirt, dusty, grass, cement, crack. There's a whole ton of them here, just a badoogie of them. Now, all the ones that are capital lettered, those are all combined from sand temple grass all the way up to asphalt. And this will be different for each map you use because some maps actually have more or different textures. And here soon, once modding gets big, you'll have a map that has all of the in-game textures because the way Giants does it, they install different terrain textures for each one of their maps, utilizing a couple that they share, but for the most part they add completely different ones. I bet to just give it a different feel. But all of these ones that are capitalized are the ones that you're going to want to be using the most because they are two different textures that are overlaid, rotated, and basically you don't see a pattern. It uses two of them. So if we were to just go one asphalt, which is one of the textures used in the pattern, and then asphalt 2 is the other texture used in the pattern. But let's click that and click here, and then we'll click on this other one and click it right here. It doesn't seem like much, but they are different. Here, we were gonna undo this and get a little closer. They are different. So if we go up to asphalt and just select the main one and we click this, you can see that the game blends them together. They were completely different, right? But when it blends them together, you can't see the original patterns, which is nice. That's how those textures work. Now, if we wanted to exactly, so I'm going to go like this with the asphalt, but say we messed up and we don't want that there. I'm going to take the little cursor and I'm going to point to the material, the texture that I want to replace. Sorry, that I want to grab, and I want to grab this dirt texture. So I will hold Control and Control and R again over the texture I want. And when I do that, it should change. All right, there we go. It changed that time. I had to get out of that screen. So there's the asphalt. And when I click on the dirt right here and I hold Control and R to replace it, now I have dirt and I can add that dirt back in. And same thing, if I wanted to do that on the grass, I could just select the grass and it'll put grass in there. Let me hit undo on all that so I don't mess up the map here. I mean, this is our map now, so I am no pro at map making. One trick I do have though is you can come down here to texture layer and say we want to paint grass, but we want to limit it to the dirt. But not all dirt. We can actually tell the game that we only want to write on one or the other of the textures. So if I go enable limit to, and when I click on this, I go limit to texture, I know that that is dirt, right? That is this one right here. But we want to only do it on the one of the two dirts that make up the capital dirt. That's confusing. So I'm going to choose dirt 2 here because we have dirt 1 and dirt 2, but these two make up that other dirt. A lot of dirt to understand. I hope you guys get it. I'm going to select that one, and when we go back to our texture paint and I have it up like this, it should only paint certain parts of the dirt there. So when I go over the top of it, you can see that you can create some unique patterns basically. And if I wanted to go back through, and now I don't like that, I can see the patterns that I have, right? So now I want to actually paint a little bit of the number 1 dirt over some of the, I want to paint the number 2 dirt over some of the number 1 dirt. So I can blend this a little bit, but by using these limiting to, now we don't have a pattern going there. You can get a little bit of a different look to it. But by using these limits, we can create more unique areas rather than just all grass or all dirt. Now, when it comes to this terrain paint right here, I'm going to be straight with you. I haven't used this a whole heck of a lot. I know it's really cool. You can paint trees and bushes and all this kind of stuff, but I'm not going to give you information on something that I don't have some solid foundation in. So hopefully I'll get more educated with that later on. So I'm going to move on from that. The next one I'm going to click on is this terrain info layer paint and kind of walk you through some of this. This video is pretty basic, and this information is going to be like pretty advanced later on stuff, but I am going to walk you through like what some of it does to the best of my knowledge, because I'm no map pro, but I know enough to get in trouble. So we're going to click on that. When we do that, it's going to pop up all these weird colors. Do not click anywhere, do not delete anything, do not do anything, just look. You cannot move in this view either. If you want to look at something else, you need to uncheck it, look over there, and then recheck it. That will get you deleting some stuff and it'll mess up everything. So what I'm going to do is kind of take your attention down to this info down here. Now, I can't tell you exactly what all this stuff does, but I can give you a general idea, because when you're downloading these 4x and 2x maps that people have basically made blanks of, a lot of times they don't edit any of this info layer stuff, and then you start having some like weird moments. You're like hearing a logging mill while you're in the middle of the city, something odd like that. So as I select down here, it says area type open land, and then when I select city, you can see, I'm going to move this down here, that the city area is going to be right in there. You have your village, and I believe this has to do with digital generation as well. I think they play into each other a little bit. You have your harbor, it's not showing up. Your industrial area, you can see it highlighted up here, and your open water area or near water. These areas in this bottom corner right here. If I was when I'm working on my water map right now, I would want to mimic this, right? What these actually do is definitely outside the scope of my brain able to process that into a tutorial currently. But with the environment underneath that one and the info layer, now we have farmlands. These all should be different colors. I just had to move so we can look at it. I'm not going to be covering farmlands, but I want to show you what it is. It's going to have all the lands listed 1 through, looks like there's 80 in here, and then there's not buyable. Now this not buyable section, we are going to do in the XML. We're going to allow ourselves to buy it or at least own it so we can build anywhere. That'd be super nice, right? But for this tutorial, we are not going to be editing any of the farmlands just so you don't mess it up. If you are super interested in learning more about map making, I do suggest Farmer Bob. I like him a lot. He's a really nice guy. He's probably a little bit more knowledgeable on maps than me. Honestly, he does it a lot more. Like, I can finger my way through it, but when it comes to vehicles, I've done so many vehicles, and I've probably only done a handful of maps in my modding career. So I can figure it out in a minute, but yeah, that's where we're at with that. So farmlands, we're going to have our indoor mask. I believe that is pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be all of the area that snow is not going to fall down. So it has all the roads. It looks like some of the buildings, I imagine, underneath some of the placeables and stuff. So you can see here, it says, actually that one's outdoor. So all the white you see is the outdoor. So that's where snow will fall. And all of this white is where snow will not fall. Navigation collision. This is going to be, I believe, used for your AI. Or like if you tell them to go to point B, they use this. Tip collision. There is a default and a block down here. Now the blocked is on the roads. I'm sure there's a couple placeables that don't let you, but basically you cannot dip stuff. You cannot drop stuff there, such as stone or whatnot. That's all blocked. But you can anywhere that's white. Tip collision generated, placement collision generated. So this placement collision, I believe, pops up for all of the buildings that you put on the map. I have not gotten into, I know the field type stuff has to do with rice. So we can see that those are rice paddies over there. Those are going to be the field types. I don't know how that works yet. Like I said, in this video, I would suggest you just stay off of there unless you're super smart. And the next little is going to be the terrain procedural placement layer paint. Nobody knows how this works thus far that I've seen. I haven't seen one good video on it. I do know, if we were to expand and close all here, I do know that in here, right, you have all these stage trees and stuff like this. I know that these were all placed by procedural generation, which makes me really wonder about Giants, like how long it actually took them to make this map, given that they're using like automated generators and stuff. A little while, right? I know that the procedural placement gets talked about in here, up here, the windows, and then I found this folder or this window that pops up. I don't know how it all works yet, but you can see that it's using some of there's a bunch of masks that are in this file, and it's using those. I couldn't tell you any more than that, but here's the actual foliage names and the trees and stuff that it's using. It's used all these trees to populate this over here. So if we wanted it to repopulate one day, we actually get like the really good pine trees in here, not these crap ones. I'm sure that would be done in here. And some rules. I don't understand how all this works yet. Don't have a clue, but I do believe this button right here, place objects, is going to be your final step. That's my thoughts on procedural placement. Once I know more, you be damn sure I'll be making a video, but as of right now, your guess is good as mine. Next, we have our terrain foliage paint mode. We are going to get down here into the ground. Oh, a long way to the, yeah, if you're going really super slow, unselect stuff, you'll go faster. The game's just like trying to render it all where it is, where the engine is. Okay, now that we're down here, I'm going to open this guy up. I'm going to click on it. When we did that, it's going to pop over the foliage tab over here. This foliage tab works just like the texture and the height. You have your add, remove, subtract, stuff like that, your hardness. Under foliage layer, we have a bunch of different stuff in here. For the most part, you're going to be working with deco foliage, deco brush, meadow, grass, and that's it. Ground foliage maybe, right? And water plant. Now you can put this other stuff there. But for the most part, when you're building a map, like right now, I don't know what this stuff is. Let's see if the replace function works on this. It does not work on that. That's kind of lame. I wish that did, right? Because then we know exactly which one it is. But if we went to deco foliage, and then it'll pop up this layer state. It has all these different things we can use. So grass small. I'm going to make a little section of grass right here. You can see that we can paint a little bit smaller grass. Same thing with this, whatever that's called, ground foliage, kind of the same thing. This is how you would go about. I don't recommend using dry branches because those don't seem to ever go away. White tip mushrooms, So we wanted to make like a little fairy circle. Right, so now if we were to go down in there, there's some mushrooms on the ground. Yeah, we can't harvest those. That'd be neat. There is a handful. So the difference between grass and normal grass. So this one's harvest ready. So this is considered like grass that you can do with a mower and whatnot. This meadow you can do with a mower too, but I don't think you can fertilize the meadow. Sorry, harvest ready. You can see the difference there. The meadow has like these little flowers that pop them in there, but I don't think you can fertilize the meadow. I think you can fertilize the grass. You'd have to talk to a real farmer about that. You can do the same thing with limit to texture paint. You just go to limit. So if we only wanted grass to show up on grass while we were painting stuff, we would select grass. Next up here is our prefabs. I don't think there's actually any prefabs in the game yet. Nope. Once Giant starts putting some prefabs on the internet and other people upload them, or you can add your own prefabs, you want to make them, you can put those in here. Reload all shaders. That when you do that, it'll reload every single shader that is currently in this map. Reload all textures, self-explanatory. Reload textures. This is if you select a single object, such as this. I don't know what this is. No, not infrastructure. And the whole thing is i3D referenced. Okay, I found something to look at there. We're gonna make our console a little bit bigger, and then we'll just hit reload texture on that. And it's not gonna find it because this is an actual i3D referenced model, I believe. It's under infrastructure, so it's not actually gonna find this texture in here. That was a bad example. And this last one is this is a new one. Reinitiate. Come on, pop back up. You just popped up a second ago. Why you gotta do that? Basically, reactivate the script environment. I don't really have any scripts that I'm using or that I'm teaching, so I don't have anything to teach you on that. Some key things that I want to point out to you, such as how big is this map really, right? Well, it's not really that big. If we click on terrain, this is how big the playable map really is. All the rest is just for looks. Now, if this map was expanded to be a 4x, this would be dope. Not gonna lie, it'd be really good. It'd be really good. Why didn't you do that, Giants? For real, this would be such a good map. Anyways, so when you're working with stuff, keep in mind in a map, it's going to have barriers. You can't see them right now because they are marked as non-renderable. But if we were to go to, let's try to find it really quick over on our map boundaries. It's going to be under infrastructure, and it's under the map boundaries. We can see the boundary all around the map. There's a boundary. You can't go outside of that. These are pretty much just collisions, static object. They keep you from going out in the water. Now, I do want to reiterate, if you delete anything that is inside one of these i3D referenced objects, such as this infrastructure one, right? That infrastructure one, everything you see highlighted, including the map boundaries, is controlled by that. It is imported in. So it doesn't matter what you do to it inside of this map right now. We could delete that boundary and be like, yay. But because it loads from this reference file, you will have that boundary pop back up every time you load up the map. There's a lot of referencing going on, so you want to make sure when you're making edits, you are not working on a referenced file, otherwise your edits are, in which case you would need to extract out the whole i3D, make your changes that you want to make to it, and then i3D reference it to your new infrastructure i3D. That's how you'd go about doing that. Let's take a peek at the fields now, because fields on, let's see, what would that be under? Sometimes I think it's map. Okay, I found it. Under fields, under gameplay. Now these fields are all, there's a ton of them. You see it goes all the way up to 49 or so, something like that. I'm going to show you how these somewhat work. There's that field right there. We're going to press F. You can have any object selected and press F and you'll autofocus right onto it. Let's take a look at this field and just see how it works. So under field, when you have this selected, the folder right above it, fields, it has some user attributes, and it's going to start a utility called field on create. So any fields that are in here, if you wanted to make more fields and whatnot, you would just duplicate it and you go right up the line. Next one would be 50 and 51, 52, 53. You would also have to make some changes inside of a XML, but from there, you see these polygon points? We're going to click on the first one. We're going to notice that it didn't move. It's right there. So that's 1 point. The next point is all the way down there. So imagine building a box out of these points. The next one's right there. Next one's right there, there, and so on and so forth, to where we build custom fields using these points. And then the name indicator, when you see it on the map and you see the number, this one would be field number 1. That's right where the number is going to be. And you can see field 1 and it has the actual acreage and it'll have that little note on there. Teleport identify. So when you teleport to this field, that's right where you'll land as well. And it's going to do that for every single field down here. Each field has its own user attributes. You can see that right here. So name indicator index 1. We go to back to the first one here. 1 teleport indicator. So this is asking where's the name indicator at inside of this field. So it is number 1. Now how it works is the name indicator, you see how it has a 1 right here, but the polygon has a 0. So the order does not start at 1, it starts at 0. So when we look back at these user attributes, the index name would be 1, because this one over here is 0, the polygon points, and name indicator is 1. Teleport index would be number 2. So 0, 1, 2. That's how it's referring that. Do we mission grass only, mission allowed? That's fields. We're going to take a look at some stop signs and stuff like that. Basically, when you're driving on the road and you just see a sign fly because you just ran it over, that's because of these are i3D referenced in, but when they do, they have a joint in them. It's a articulation joint, and this joint kind of has a bunch of information here. Brake force, this is how much power it's going to take to actually like break it. These get interesting. You can do some wild stuff messing around with these articulation joints. I've done some fun stuff like destroyable walls, but you have to hit them really hard. That's basically how these work. So if you're importing out or exporting out like a stop sign stuff, keep that in mind, that you're not like just coming in here and just taking the sign and stuff like that. An actual stop sign includes this articulation joint. Now let's say you wanted to add some more trees, and I wouldn't go too crazy because we'll have to start updating like the GRLs and stuff on the map, and that's a little bit past my brain. But if I wanted to add some trees to say this little area right here, I would find this tree, and currently I think these are under the procedural placed. I don't know how that system works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this tree. I'm going to select it. It's in here. I'm going to press Control C. I'm going to select off of it so I don't have anything selected, and it'll just paste it at the bottom. I'm going to paste that tree. You want to make sure it's on the outside of everything. Now with that tree placed in here, I'm just going to do Control G while I have it selected. It's going to make it in a group, and I'm going to rename it My Trees. You might be able to do this inside the procedural placement and it be okay too, but I don't know how it works, so it's best to just not do that. And I could just leave My Trees down at the bottom in there. I could also be more organized. I could create a few more transform groups and, you know, change one to My Edits, something like that. And then holding my middle mouse button, I can just drag my trees in there. So I want to move that tree because there's already a tree next to it, or it'll be right on top of it. So you don't want to double stack. Let's say I want to put some trees right here. I'm going to press Control B while I have it selected. That'll put me in interactive placement mode, right? Interactive placement mode is super useful. My computer's a little laggy. It's because there's a lot of crap on this map. And while you hold your left mouse button, while you're clicking, you'll be able to drag it around. If you press Shift, it'll copy the item as is, same rotations. If you press Control, and you can just keep holding the left mouse button the whole time, it will place it, but it'll rotate it so it'll look different. It does a random rotation so the trees aren't all just placed right next to each other. Once I let go of my left mouse button, it'll stay put right where it is, and all those trees will populate over here under My Trees. And now I just added a bunch of trees that I can cut to this area. A little dangerous, right? Next to some power lines. What were we thinking? Let's say you don't like a collision, or you don't like a model somewhere. This happens a lot with cell locations. You notice here at the bakery, this is kind of tight. Like for a semi to come in and like off to pick stuff up, it's kind of a pain in the butt. I don't like this light this light and this sign. So this sign, when I click on it, I just want to make sure when I look that it is not advertising flag. It is in the actual mod itself right here. It's locked, but it's in there. The one right underneath it, the furniture wood, those are actually i3D referenced, but they are not a part of a big i3D referenced in file like the infrastructure one we saw earlier. So because I can just move this advertising, I just want to move it out of the way a little bit. All right, maybe move it over here so it's not like right in the way of when we try to go sell. And then what about this light pole? I'm going to click on the light pole here, and it is i3D referenced in, so we can't make any like visual changes to it or collision changes, anything like that. But we do want to see if the whole file is referenced in, because if it is, like the infrastructure, it'll just go right back to where it was before. But it doesn't look like it is. I think it's under streetlights and under props and under town area, that is under locations, that is under the map. So it's not i3D referenced in. So we can move this pole or delete it. Be straight. I'm just going to delete it to show you that you can delete it. And you can delete that. And now there's no light there. Now you can pull a semi in. There's a little bit more room. This will happen a lot to where maybe there's a fence or something like that you just absolutely hate. But that's what you need to pay attention to, is make sure something is in the map or in the model and not i3D referenced in and a part of a whole. Because if we made any changes, we're going to expand collapse. We're going to go see if we made any changes inside of infrastructure right here, this whole file, and same thing with the train lights and the water planes, these files are i3D referenced. So any changes that we make for roads, tunnels, bridges, piers, anything like that, if we were to change a collision or remove a collision, here's a collision. Well, that's a huge collision. We're definitely going to keep that. If we were to make any changes here, they would be obsolete, because when it reloads this in next time we load our game, it'll just be like boop, won't matter. But we can do it to those other things. Let's talk about these destructible objects that Giants has in here. There is a handful of them. If we were to click on that folder and kind of zoom way out so we can see they're kind of scattered throughout the map. So we got some in the north, the east, everywhere. Let's take a peek at these and see how they work. From my understanding, you can have like 200, I believe, of these horizontal rocks, or there's other rocks too, just depends on what map you're in. I think you can have up to 200 of them in each transform group. Don't know, don't quote me on that. Try to break your game and let me know, you know. Let's click on, is it this one that has user attributes? No, destroyable rocks. Okay, so when we click on this guy, it's the parent transform group to the actual rocks, and we click on the user attributes, we'll see it's a rock type. For destructible type, that's going to be reaching into the game. The game has like a checklist, be like, oh, okay, it's a rock, this does that. The destruction volume, this is going to be like how many pieces it breaks up into, and the drop amount. So these are currently set to drop 1,300 liters of each one. You could change these to 5,000. And also, if you're using a map that has let's say iron ore, you could change this fill type as long as it's installed in the map to iron ore. Now this group ID is set to 1. If we were to look at number 2, we'll notice that the second group here, destroyable rocks, is set to number 2, and so on and so forth, all the way down to number 6. And each one of these drops just a little bit more rocks or less. You can make all the edits and changes you want. How this works, from my understanding, is it is referencing a destructible map system that is inside of one of the folders on the game that tells it how it works. Another thing you're going to see on your maps is these things called splines. Splines are just a tool that are used for a handful of things. In this current case, it's the pedestrian system. You know, all the people you see walking around. We're just going to click on a spline here and go take a peek at it. So when they created this spline, it is referenced in the user attributes. You got your density, your width of it, your group. But under the pedestrian system, I believe it calls for pedestrian system. And then here's the actual XML file. If you were to be making a custom map and changing these at all, adding them or removing them, not so much moving where they walk, but adding new ones or removing them, you would need to make a new XML file pedestrian system and update that, either removing or adding more splines. But if you were just to grab one and then while you had it selected and you wanted him to, I don't know if we can select that. I think the road might be in the way. Let's try to get it. Nope. All right. You can grab these. Can't currently do it because the road's in the way. But when building those, and you'll be able to drag them and move them and stuff like that. That's how the pedestrians move around. And the cars work the exact same way for the most part. Here's a short little spline. I think these ones are just little sets. User attributes, speed limit, max speed, AI spline. So that's the highway group one. I'm not an expert on how they did the multiple splines here, but I do know that you could just do, they're very similar to the ones that work with the people. I believe you can just assign one and that'll do it. But if you wanted to go all around the map and make splines similar to this, for your map, you'd be solid. Traffic splines, let's look at those user attributes. You can see that if you did make custom traffic, you would have to come into here and update your traffic system, I imagine. I haven't really messed around with the traffic splines. I do know where to look for this stuff, but I haven't like made a ton of maps, like I said. Yeah, you're gonna start getting into the same thing with the train system, which I don't know if there's a train on this map. I didn't see a train spline or anything like that. You have some more for the AI. I don't exactly. These just must be roads for when they're the AI, you tell it to go somewhere, it's gonna find a nearest spline. Let's see what these user attributes say. So AI road spline creator. A quick chat on the billboards. So you can edit this all you want, right? So you come in here with this selected, the decal panel. You can see that there's an ad here, this diffuse But if I remember correctly, couldn't figure it out for the longest time, and I still haven't figured out how they're doing it, but these will update based upon Giants' current advertising campaign. So if you change this in here, I would go through and like rename it, get it out of the billboards folder. I don't know how they're calling it, frankly. It might just be by name to replace the texture. But if you're trying to like make your own billboard and you're like, why does it keep going back to the Giants editor one? Just go through and change some wording on stuff, you know, add a 2 in here or whatnot, and it'll stop updating. Now taking a peek at the pre-placed grain elevator, and there's a bunch of other pre-placed stuff here, such as the sawmill, the carpentry, dairy, all this stuff. This stuff is loaded in the game here, and it has under its special user attributes. If there's any under there, no, just under the actual transform group it shows the AI splines. So it's asking for this information, and if you notice, it's referenced in here, the i3D. So it's referencing this is a individual mod in the game, or i3D mod, and it's telling the game where the splines are located, which I dig back up here. And then it is a part of an on create. On create is kind of like Giants' magic little wand. Says make me a placeable on create. A unique ID. This is going to be used inside of the placeable.xml file, and then it's also going to reference the XML for this grain thing, which would be right there. That's the stock one. If we were to be making custom ones, we would be changing this or just loading it in traditionally through the placeable.xml, which when I looked, you still have to do for these. I think I'm getting an error on one of the doohickeys that I made because I haven't done this yet. Okay, on to vehicle shop stuff. So here's the vehicle shop trigger. You can see player trigger for its rigid body type. Now in there, it has a shop marker icon, which would be this little bad boy right here. And it has its own settings and whatnot, and the point light. And it also has a player spawn. So vehicle shop player spawn. We can look under user attributes. It doesn't say anything, but we'll look here, look under that user attributes. So it must be hard coded in from this on create. So just every map will have this. It'll do shop trigger, and then it's probably looking for the vehicle's player spawn right underneath it. I believe that's hard coded, so because I can't find any references right there. So you want to make sure that that vehicle shop player spawn, man, tongue twister, is there. Let's look at the store spawning places. Right there. Go to user attributes, and we can see that on create, it's a base mission store spawn place offset Y. So it's going to lift it up off the ground just a hair. so vehicles don't spawn in the ground and fall through the earth. And it works like how they spawn pallets. So you have your number 1 spot right there, and then when I click on the 2 spot, it goes all the way to there. So basically, vehicles can spawn anywhere in this area here, and store spawn shop 1 is anywhere in that area there. Just imagine a imaginary box. That's how those work. The career start point. This is going to be every time you load into your map, it's where you're going to spawn unless you put down like a house or something like that. But every time you load into this map, you're going to spawn right there. You will notice that when they place this, it is just a little bit off the ground. The reason why is so your player doesn't repetitively spawn inside the map and fall through the map or get stuck in models. So when you go to place this, make sure you lift it up off the ground just a hair, okay? The terrain, I usually don't do much with this, like having it selected over here. When you have it selected, you know, you can go through and see what the rigid body types are. Look at the terrain. There used to be a little button right here that allowed you to install new paintable materials. I don't know where that went, but I've manually been installing them. It's a whole process in its own. If we go to user attributes, nothing crazy there. Visibility condition, nothing crazy there. For the sun, same thing. I usually don't mess with this unless in FS25 I made a Mars map, so I made it more red a little bit. But if you start ending up with a weird sun, like you accidentally edited or something, just import in a new one from the stock game and that'll fix it. Zipping around the map trying to find all the stuff to show you guys. Next, collectibles. This under the main tag doesn't say anything for user attributes nor the map. Now when we go to ball, there is some attributes there. These are going to be referring back to your XML of your map XML. So if we were to have this open up here, this map AS, if we were to open this up, and when you're scrolling down, you're looking for the word collectibles, which is right here. If you remove or add any new collectibles, you need to go into your data folder, copy this collectible, paste it inside your map mod, and then reference it back in this file if you're going to be making changes to it, because these are referencing that folder. So if you were to change the name here or add more balls or whatnot, then you would definitely need to make those changes or you're going to get an error. I'm going to hit save on this. Hey, there's little boxes. And we're going to dive into the map XML, which is when it created our new map here. Here's the basics of what it looks like. It created a map folder, an icon.dds. It created a mod disk for us and a preview.dds. These are going to need to be edited by you in a future video because we're already almost an hour into this bad boy. But this mod disk, let's open that up and take a peek at it. You would come into here, and I think our current version is 92 on the disk. It has my name. We're gonna, you change the name here that you want for your map name. Same thing here, do a description, my mod description, write a nice little description in there. You can convert it to German so people can read it. I like to change the sample mod thing. Just create a weird ID like AS liberated liberate rate. There we go. I'll get it. Okay, I like to just change that way you have a unique map ID. But this is where it's going to start dipping into some stuff. I don't mess with class name or mission Lua. That's all going to be super advanced. But this is where it looks for our map AS XML file that I was just showing you that holds all the collectible information and a ton of other information. This is where it's going to load the default vehicles that you spawn with. So when you start a new game under new farmer and you get the tractor and the harvester, the really crappy one, it's reaching into this file to know exactly what mods they are and where they're located. And same thing with this, the default hand tools XML, default placeables. So this little section of the mod disk loads in all the items, the placeables, the vehicles, and the map itself. So let's go to that first one, that map config. I'm going to hit save on this. I'm going to go map AS. This is where a lot of times you'll be looking whether or not like it's a 4x map or 2x map. This one is a 20 by, it's a normal size map is what it is. It is looking for this file name. This is going to be super important. Make sure that it does not say data S here. If it says data S here, like these other ones, then it's reaching into the game for that i3D file, and any of the changes that you make inside of this guy won't reflect your in-game stuff. Once you got that made sure, you can see there's some stuff you can edit in here and some stuff you're just going to leave until you're ready for that. Such as the shop. Probably going to leave that for a while. Yes, you can have a custom shop. Or items, same thing. Those are going to be all the items that are loaded in the game initially. If your sounds, environment, weed, fields, this is where you were going to, if you're to be editing the fields and adding more, removing fields, you would go find this file, copy it, remove said fields, and then reference inside of your map mod to this file. Same thing with animal names. You can name one Fred if you want, but you need to go in, and this gets a little trickier now because this, when you see this data S, this means that this stuff is encrypted. You can't actually go in and find that animals.xml. Eventually somebody will crack it, but if you see this extra S at the end of data, it's the encrypted stuff. Okay, NPCs, if you wanted to change the names of the NPCs on your map, this is where you would do that. I don't really mess around with the wildlife too much. License plates, if you wanted to do custom license plates, you'd come in and do the same thing, copy, go find that XML, make your own license plate. There's your collectibles again, helpline, game hints, missions. I don't mess with that too much, but you have these destructible rock missions as well. Once we get a little deeper one day, you can change the amount of trees, but be cautious. Increasing this number will increase lag in your game once you get a ton of trees like that. This is if you started making new fruit types or new different things you can farm, this is where you'd be coming in and editing that. Fruit type categories, same thing. So this one's installing Meadow AS, which is a different Meadow, and it's also putting in, so this is adding to what's already installed in the game, is what this loading is here. Additional files, you can change what the tension belts look like through the map. Tire tracks, you can basically go through and edit quite a bit of stuff. Just as long as you keep in mind, if it doesn't work, go back to the way you had it. Deco foliage, not going to get into that. It's a little even too deep for my brain. This would be kind of where you start adding in different ground types that are usable in the store, buyable and paintable. You can see all these different ones: ground type mapping, forest ground, rock, stuff like that. One of the last things I want to teach you guys how to do is make all the land buyable. In here, your map AS XML, we're going to look for farmlands, and we notice that it's a data $, so it's going to be reaching into the maps AS config farmlands. We want to go track down that file. We're going to go to this location in our save game files. I have located that file now, and it's right here, farmlands. And in my actual mod map, I'm going to open up my config file, which is in here. And you notice that I only have items, placeables, and vehicles. We are going to copy this farmlands into here. Just going to copy it in there. Make sure you leave your original, or it will mess up next time you load up your game in the stock map. Now that we have it in there, we can reference it into our map. So it'll be under maps, map AS config. And I already forgot. He's done. Maps, map AS config. It's the exact same thing as it was before. So just like that. Now it'll read into our farmland. So if I hit save here on this file, then we come back to our mod folder, we're going to open up this farmlands one now. Now in here, I'll explain what everything looks like. These are all the farmlands that we saw in the map. All of these green, all these random colors here. Let's go to here. This guy, make it a little bigger. Boop, bring that up. And we click on farmlands. All these different colors you see out here, these are all different farmlands, and they're all referencing certain ones. So if we go to farmland 1, I can see it way over there. I think it's this one. Let me there. So that's farmland 1. Farmland 1 is referenced right here, farmland ID 1. And so on and so forth if we went down the line. So that is owned by the animal dealer, it says. Farmland ID 1. Apparently that's owned by the animal dealer. These NPC names are the little pictures that show up. So if you see your grandpa or a helper, you can pick and choose what NPC owns it. Up here in the price per acre, if you wanted to make all the land on the map a lot cheaper, you would change this. Right now it's at 60,000 per acre. You could change it to 6,000 per acre, or make it more expensive. Or you can individually make the land more expensive to where we wanted that one piece of property there to be way more expensive than the rest. We could put, maybe that's 10x for price. You can see that they did the same thing here under BJIA farmland bought via placeable. So in that BGA placeable, there's a little code that says when you buy this BGA, you own this land, but here's the price per acre. We're going to change that. That way that one property isn't like a millionaire property. You can see we go down and we have all of these farmland. The one we are going to be looking for is usually the one it says not buyable. Now this took me forever to figure out which farmland ID was not buyable, and it is 255, I believe. At least this is what worked for my River Springs one, so we'll find out. And what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna copy this, but you can just put 255 in there. Duplicate one. We're gonna go back to my other map. This is the one we've been working on the whole time. I'm gonna paste that in there. And Grandpa, so I changed the price scale is 0. Grandpa owns it, and when you very first start the game as a new player, you own all. Let's see if that works, and hopefully it doesn't crash it, because it worked on the river on this one, because it took me a little while to figure out which one was 255. All right, so we have our farmlands pointed towards that farmlands. We have our mod disc all set up. We should be good to go to try to load this in game. Now I don't have this zipped at all, right? If you're just going to be working on this, I recommend just leave it unzipped. And when you go to share it with friends, do a quick test, zip it up and test it. But while you're working on it, just leave it unzipped. All right, if you haven't created a new preview, it should look like this basically. I'm gonna whenever you're testing stuff, you want to remove all your mods. You don't want to be running any mods but the thing you're testing. So I just got the map loaded up. Let's try it. So nothing serious. Something loading. You can see the screen's really white because we didn't create a preview or anything like that, but it is loading up our map. Oh, there we go. Error-free, 100%, baby. Let's see if we own the map. Now, we did not assign, it looks funny like this because we didn't assign it a proper like PDF for a map. So if we came into our in-game stuff, we're gonna come under our maps folder, and I copied the AS one, but we will, let me find that stuff. I believe it's under textures. Nope. Yep, UI. It's under right here, UI. So you have a preview and an overview. The best thing to do is just grab it, copy it by holding control on your other folder and just drop it in there, replace it, and then come here for overview. We have to see where the map is looking for the overview at. So the overview is inside of here. What's that one look like? It looks ugly is what it looks like. All right, so we're just gonna move that overview into our map AS folder. We're gonna replace it. Now it's not gonna work right now, but next time you load up this map, that should load up perfectly for us. What else did we do? We made sure that the land was buyable, right? So we own all the land. Usually when you do all the land like that, it is a 256. I'm looking for the big boy. I just reloaded the game. You can see that the preview now pops up and our map should load up too. So it'll be easier to show you what we did. All right, with our game reloaded back up with that minor adjustment to the PDF, it is now fixed. It is now fixed. Now the true power is finding the area. This one, quite a few areas lit up when I clicked on that. Should be able to buy everything or already be bought. We're just gonna go into our place mode and just go, let's find a light. Cool, that looks good. It says area restricted. Land is not owned by you. See if we can find some land. I don't know this map as good. Okay, trying to find the generic area. So you can see how we can build along the roads and stuff here. That doesn't change all the restricted areas stuff. There is like a legit no build zone that I have not edited yet, but you can see we can place. We're way far away from our farm that we started off with. As long as it isn't overlapping with stuff. See, I can place down here in the parking lot in there as well. I believe you can do free place. Ah, okay. So if you just press B and you do free place, now I can place anywhere. I want to place on top of this building up here. Maybe I want to build a whole skyscraper. Okay, that's working. Sweet. Yeah, that is your map making introduction. Okay, I decided to go with an actual in-game map so you could follow along and see some stuff, how stuff works, and mainly how not to break your game. So I hope this has helped you out a bunch. If it has, please, please, please hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and leave a comment down below if there's something else that you'd like me to cover in more depth.